Welcome to 100 Yards Football this morning. We got an NFL Draft Prospect Special. Today we're going to highlight Kenny Pickett, quarterback out of the University of Pittsburgh. So if you like the video today, please come in and share it. I'm your host, Vincent Turner. And joining me this morning, I consider him the savant of all players, evaluating them on a high level in the NFL. He comes to us out of Key West, Florida. He's got the resume to back it up. He studied under two of the greatest coaches that ever coached this game. He's got Super Bowl championships. It's had great players. He was with the New York Jets at the time. He studied under Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick. He's got a book out that's one of the top sellers on Amazon, Whatever It Takes. It's all about this life and what it means to have a dream and continue with it to the end of time. And if you look at him right now, he's got an Atlanta Falcons hat on. He's paying homage to the Atlanta Braves who won the World Series last night. He's very talented, very special. He's out of St. Paul, Minnesota, by way of Minneapolis. My man, the legend, the number one NFL scout that's doing this on any level to high. My man, Daniel Kelly. How you doing this morning, sir?
Hey, I'm doing real well, Mr. Turner. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing fantastic, man. It's a great time to be alive here in the metro Atlanta area. Because the Atlanta Braves have rocked the nation.
Absolutely. I got the hat on. Just so everybody knows, I also rock out a Deion Sanders jersey or two. And I also have an Atlanta Braves Deion Sanders baseball jersey, too. So it's, yeah, absolutely. Congratulations to the Atlanta Braves. And I'm ready to roll, ready to talk some football today. Thanks for the great intro.
Okay, let's talk about Kenny Pickett, quarterback, University of Pittsburgh.
Absolutely. Kenny Pickett I'm giving out a new award, by the way. I want to stop the presses for a second and talk about this. I'm giving out something that's called the Zach Wilson Award every year now. And this guy gets my Zach Wilson Award of the Year for somebody who's extremely overrated and somebody who is going to underdeliver. You talk a lot about music, Mr. Turner. You talk about, all these different songs and different artists and things. This guy, Kenny Pickett, is a one-hit wonder is how I would best describe him. 6'3", 220, throws the ball with a glove. He's a guy that his body type, NFL scouts will talk a lot about body type when they discuss players. This guy looks what I call frumpy. This guy has a frumpy-looking body. He's who I compared him to in my Sports Illustrated Detroit Lions article this past week, as I compared him to a quarterback of yesteryear named Rusty Hilger, is who he reminds. The first name that came into my mind with the encyclopedia of names that are in my mind for the last 40 years. I've heard the comparison to a Kirk Cousins with this guy. Oh, no, don't get me started on Kirk Cousins, the most overrated player in the National Football League, the most overpaid player in the National Football League. This guy, though, could be a poor man's Kirk Cousins, a poor man's Zach Wilson. As he's another one, these flash in the pan, fast risers in the eyes of many people out there. But make no mistake, read my lips. This guy is nothing like Dan Marino. I keep hearing the different things about the school he's coming on, things and the records he's breaking. This guy couldn't hold Dan Marino's clipboard. When I wrote him up for the Detroit Lions last week, after 3 games I watched this year, actually 4 now, I gave him a 5th round grade. And he is not on my draft board at all. If I had one word to describe him, as I talked about in Sports Illustrated, it would be unorthodox. The definition, my mom was an English teacher when I was growing up, as far as she had been before I was born, I should say, but she had a lot of that in her. And a lot of play on words and definitions and things like that I was subjected to as a youngster. What does the word unorthodox mean? I looked it up. Contrary to what is usual, traditional, or accepted. Another word that comes to mind when I look at a Kenny Pickett is the word quirky, defined by unusual and interesting in an appealing type of way. He's got all the numbers. So let's not kid ourselves. There's no question he has the numbers, but I was not impressed in the 3 games I watched. Actually, like I said, 4. I watched him against Western Michigan. I watched him against Georgia Tech, Clemson, and most recently against Miami. Big 2021 numbers, absolutely. 207 of 299 passing attempts and completion, 69.2 completion percentage, 2,755 yards reached currently, 9.2 yard average, 26 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Nobody can argue that. However, being a scout is like being a private investigator. You have to go back and look at what the overall, what is called the body of work is. And when I look at this guy in 2020, 13 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. 2019, same thing. 13 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. 2018, 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. This guy showed a 3-year pattern of throwing that many interceptions and touchdowns. Now suddenly he has a breakout year. I don't buy it. I think they're trying to game plan and scheme for him to have success and pad his numbers with a lot of short throws and things like that. I think this would be a big feather in the cap for the recruiting process of Pittsburgh. I'm not buying it whatsoever. I think this guy is who he is when he showed us in 2018, 19, and 20. And also, he was said to be up and down last year after he suffered an ankle injury. I mean, let's look at this. ESPN's total quarterback rating, which is something that's an exclusive rating system only known to ESPN. In 18, 19, and 20, the guy's quarterback overall total quarterback rating was in the 120 range. Now, all of a sudden, it shoots up to 173.3. That scares me to death when I see a quarterback like that come out of nowhere and all of a sudden do this. Like I said in Sports Illustrated, is this a sign of maturity or is this an aberration? As I said also in my article, the game film provides clues. Again, that's very important to grab a hold of this morning. The things I liked about Kenny Pickett, I'll rattle off some things that I do like. He does have good size. He has mobility. He runs around a lot. He's on the move a lot. It's almost like watching someone play sandlot football or a pickup football game after school. He runs around a lot and he runs hard. This guy can slide. Like we talked about in our last show about Carson Strong not having any idea how to slide. Well, this guy does know how to slide. He has a decent arm, good ball handling skills in the pocket. He can get some zip on the ball. He's decent in a short to intermediate route levels of the field. He is best over the middle. If I'm an NFL defensive coordinator, everything I do is funneling towards the middle of the field because this is where this guy is most comfortable throwing the ball. We talked about Malik Willis a few weeks ago, how he only throws to the perimeters and to the sidelines. It's the opposite with this guy, with Pickett. Pickett, what he does is he loves the middle of the field, especially in the intermediate route level. He's a tough guy, no question about that. He does not take unnecessary chances with the football, which is probably the biggest thing that he's got going for him, is he can protect the football, which I'll get into in a couple minutes here. I'll circle back to. He's somebody that is a good character guy. Again, when I Google, his name, when I type in Kenny Pickett background, Kenny Pickett arrests, suspensions, drinking, all these different queries that I run basically to see if any stories, any sniff, anything can come up of a background trouble. This guy comes out clean as laundry you pick up at the laundromat. This guy doesn't have any character flaws or issues as far as anything I can see. Now, things I did not like about him, there's a few more things I didn't like than I did like. Again, this guy is not on my draft board. I know that's going to upset a lot of draft nicks out there, and I know it's going to upset a lot of people because this guy is shooting up like a new company in the stock market that's hot. This guy just looks rough around the edges to me, guys. I mean, that's the bottom line. If I had to describe it, if I'm sitting in a war room and they say, Daniel, what do you think of Kenny Pickett? I'm going to start by saying unorthodox, looks rough around the edges. I think that I just don't think he throws an NFL ball. I think he throws an NFL. I think he throws a ball that NFL defensive backs are going to feast on like it's Thanksgiving. Things I didn't like. Let's unpack them. Number one, lacks pocket poise. Has happy feet. Very jumpy in the pocket. Just looks plain uncomfortable in the pocket. This is a huge red flag to me. He will take off and bail out at the first sign of pressure. He's going to take off. He's not a guy that's going to stare the rush down the barrel and stand in the pocket and throw it. That is not this guy at all. This guy will bail out the first sign of pressure. He is, we just got done with Halloween, right, guys? He is spooked easily. And he wants to get out of there quickly. He's not a guy, like I said, that's going to hang in the pocket and gun it like a Mac Jones or somebody like that. Number two, he throws from a very, what I call, elongated throwing motion. He's got a big push off and delivery, which actually tips off defensive backs all the more where the ball is going. Bad sign. Number three, this is the big one. This is the kiss of death in the NFL. He has a tendency to lock in with his receivers. It's like, guys, they called a smoke signal back in the old days. You can call it a text message today. It's like he's sending a text message to defensive back saying, quote unquote, hey guys, this is where I'm going to throw the ball. When you lock in with receivers in the NFL, you are going to get your team killed. Bad sign. Number four, he's inconsistent deep with the deep ball. Number five, this is a big one. He does not throw the easiest ball to catch. And why I gave him the Zach Wilson Award is because everybody talked about Zach Wilson coming out. I don't think they turned on the film and watched it, guys, because Zach Wilson, yes, he completed the passes. Thank God his receivers were able to catch him for him, but they were jumping, sliding. They were all over the road. He did not throw an easy ball to catch in BYU. He did not throw a ball like Mac Jones that receivers could catch and run right through effortlessly. They were sliding, jumping, diving. They were all over the road for the ball. That's what I'm seeing with Kenny Pickett. I'm seeing inconsistent ball placement, especially high. He has a tendency to throw the ball and release it, and it comes off high where receivers are jumping up to go get it. Another thing I didn't like about Kenny Pickett, I talked about him being quirky earlier, is the tempo and the rhythm is just, it just feels herky-jerky. It feels like a kid learning to drive a stick shift automobile, watching this guy run an offense. He takes too many sacks for my liking. He took 4 against Miami. He's a guy, now he doesn't make stupid mistakes with the ball, which is a plus, but he just takes too many sacks. And he's just plain inconsistent overall. And this was the word on Kirk Cousins coming out. I asked a scouting director friend I have in the NFL, what was the word on Kirk Cousins? The guy said inconsistent, Danny. That's why he lasted to the 4th round. And that's what I see with Kenny Pickett, inconsistency. I think we saw some of this last week against Miami, rear its ugly head, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Far less polished looking against Clemson. He was against Georgia Tech or Western Michigan. I just don't. He runs exclusively out of the shotgun. Never got a chance really to see him under center. There just is no dominant traits with this guy. There's no way in the world this guy is a 1st-round draft pick. If this guy is a 1st-round legitimate draft pick, I'm an astronaut. I mean, this guy has no dominant traits. Overall, I think he's another one of these big statistical college quarterbacks that lacks the necessary starting skill set to be productive in the National Football League at the next level. I think he is at best a career backup, 2nd or 3rd string guy. I can see him doing that for maybe 10 years or just hanging out carrying a clipboard. He's a guy that can come into a game in the NFL and provide a spark, but defenses are going to catch on to this guy, and they are going to, it's not going to be pretty if he ends up starting for a long period of time. I think he'll get exposed as a starter. He is not a solution to an NFL team or their future. He just looks so darn uncomfortable to me in the pocket. I can't even begin to describe it, and all I do is speak and write words for a living, and I can't even find the words to talk about uncomfortable this guy looks like. I just could not warm up to him. And what I did notice too is I noticed that he had big stats. Everyone talks about the 5-touchdown game against New Hampshire. Who cares? We saw the same thing with Trey Lance last year. Pitching big numbers against guys who won't sniff an NFL workout does not impress me as an NFL evaluator. I looked at some of the other games. It seems like the better level of competition he played, the worse he played. As I pointed out against Clemson, Miami, I just don't see it. The level of competition is a huge consideration when talking about projecting a quarterback or any player to the next level in the NFL draft. And everyone wants to talk about last week against the game against Miami, 519 yards, blah, blah, blah. Hey, listen, if you're throwing the ball 55 times in a game, I hope you throw for 519 yards, okay? This guy is a surefire bust if he's going in the first, second, third, or fourth, rounds. He's a late round guy. I even saw projections of other people in when I did background research prior to the season. Guys were saying, oh, he's a 5th round guy, he's a 6th round guy. And all of a sudden, it shoots up the ladder because everyone's quarterback starved and quarterback desperate, and he's got a good marketing firm and a good agent and whoever else trying to push this guy and trying to manufacture him to be something he is not. This guy is anything but a first-round pick. I think he's, like I said, is a classic example of overinflation, overvaluing. Again, not on my draft board. No can do, no way. I just think the inconsistency, the erratic ball placement, the inconsistency deep, the uncomfortability in the pocket, doesn't throw the ball with enough zip on the out patterns, his tendency to lock in with receivers. He's a first-read quarterback, a one-trick pony who's rough around the edges. Guys, I'm just not seeing it. Classic example, I think, I have a scouting friend that tells me all the time, these guys show who they are in film. And if they show you who they are, he always says, believe them. He says kind of a high-pitched voice. If they show you who they are, believe them. And when I'm watching this Miami game this week, that everybody's talking about how great he is and Dan Marino and breaking records and all this nonsense, what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the end of the game when Pittsburgh is down and they end up losing this game. I'm looking at the end of this game, and when the game's on the line, he pulled. I understand the comparison to Kirk Cousins because he choked just like Kirk Cousins. And then when the game was on the line, he threw it behind the receiver, got himself intercepted, lost the game. Not a gamer at all. Career backup. That's my thoughts on Kenny Pickett. Your thoughts, Mr. Turner?
Well, one thing I'm going to say about Kenny Pickett, of course, I'm not going to go against you. You're a guy that's been doing this at a high level. But I'm going to tell you 2 things I like about him. Outside his skill set, seems like he's very competitive and he's tough with flashes. Then you always know how I do it. I always compare him back to quarterbacks that played in the day. Basically, me being 61 years old, he puts me in the mind of a Tom Clements that really led Notre Dame during the early 70s. Then remember Tommy Kramer that played playing Vikings.
Minnesota Vikings, number 9.
He got some of that Tommy Kramer in him, to me personally. And then finally, he reminds me of a Robbie Bosco, who led BYU to a national championship. All these guys were about 6'2", 210, not really flashy. But I got a question for you this morning. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are comparing him to Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow number 2. So explain to me this then.
That's actually funny.
Why is the comparison so high with Joe Burrow?
This guy couldn't hold Joe Burrow's clipboard. Joe Burrow's got a killer instinct. Joe Burrow, I really like. I just wrote up Joe Burrow a couple weeks ago for Detroit Lions Sports Illustrated when Detroit played him. Joe Burrow's got killer instinct in his eyes. He's got a chip on his shoulder. One of my scouting friends told me if Bill Belichick ever left the New England Patriots, he'd want to go to the Cincinnati Bengals and coach Burrow. Burrow's a gamer, man. Burrow's got swag. Burrow's got confidence. Burrow's got this. He's a throwback. I mean, this is a guy that could play back in the 50s or something with Johnny Unitas and these guys. This guy, it's not even in the same conversation. I don't care if I'm sitting in the NFL scouting room right now and I'm surrounded by Belichick and everybody else. If somebody, and I don't mean anything with you, Mr. Turner, but if Bill Belichick looked at me and said, this guy, there's comparisons, Daniel, what do you think people are talking about Joe Burrow? I would have laughed with Bill Belichick sitting across from me the same way as I just laughed on the show, respectfully. I mean, It's just that is actually comical. Whoever's saying that on the internet doesn't even understand the game of football is my reaction to that, because this guy is anything but Joe Burrow. This guy maybe be a 4-string quarterback in the Cincinnati Bengals if you put him up with against Joe Burrow. This is a career backup guy. See, what people want to do, historically, Mr. Turner, 50% of draft picks in the first round are busts. My editor, the owner of Draft Diamonds, Damon Talbot, he did a research project that only 35% of first rounders over the last 10 years have gone on to make the Pro Bowl. Okay, everyone talks about first rounders. Let's jump into the top 10. Let's tank for Kenny. Let's tank for this guy. Let's tank for Tua. Let's tank for. Listen. These quarterbacks get so overplayed and so overinflated. And when you're struggling against Georgia Tech, when you're struggling against Western Michigan, as a guy who has worked an intern with Tony Dungy, as a guy who's friends with Mark Trestman, who is the only coach in the history of football to coach 2 league MVPs, and Rich Gannon in the NFL and Anthony Cavallo in the CFL, with a guy who was almost hired by Andy Reid, for somebody like me who's worked with Belichick and Parcells. When I look at this type of a thing, I look at somebody who's overinflated and a team is trying to manufacture into a quarterback. The reason why people are talking about Kenny Pickett being a guy like Joe Burrow is because he's got a good PR firm, because he's got a good agent. He's got people that are making it. They're calling in favors to their media friends who they trade information with to publish some of this crap. This guy is anything but Joe Burrow. You can write it down. I'll stake my professional scouting reputation on it. Whoever drafts this guy in the first round is a fool.
Well, my final words, your final words on Kenny Pickett.
Final words. Don't do it. If you're an NFL owner right now, don't do it. Do not do it. I wrote messages last year to Mr. Woody Johnson. I wrote messages to Tony Khan down in Jacksonville. I told him emphatically, don't do it. Don't draft Zach Wilson. Don't draft Trevor Lawrence. I sent messages to Jed York begging him not to draft Trey Lance. If you're an NFL owner, do not do this one. There's better. Go with Matt Corral. Go with Carson Strong. Stay away from Kenny Pickett. If you're going to get Kenny Pickett, get him in the 5th round if you want to bring him in, because he does have value as a backup player. He's a guy that can come in and provide a short-term spark in an emergency situation, but please do not draft him. I'm begging you, Mr. or Mrs. NFL owner, do not draft this guy in the 1st round, because you are going to set your organization back by years if you do it.
Well, my final words about Kenny Pickett, he's from the great state of New Jersey. And when I think about him, then I'm listening to you, how you broke down his NFL draft profile. All I can say, like the great Bruce Springsteen, born in the USA. Kenny Pickett, brother, you better bring your A game. You better improve on playing for the rest of the year. I think you played pretty good this year, but my man, Daniel Kelly, he's saying that you're not a 1st rounder. And I'm not going to go against him. So if you like the video today, please come in and share it here on 100 Yards Football. And I would like to say kudos to the Atlanta Braves and to our great producer who's doing an outstanding job this morning, Mr. Logan Landers.
Absolutely.
Thank him personally for making this happen today on 100 Yards Football.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Logan.
Have a blessed week. We see you next week. I'm Vincent Turner. My special guest today is Mr. Daniel Kelly, NFL scout. Have a blessed